I apologize if you can hear a cat purring or if you can hear the cars driving past. It's bad recording time, but it is what it is. Welcome to this week's episode of I meant to do more this week, but ended up investing all of my efforts and energy into one topic, and that topic is my campaign lore. I mean, is anyone surprised at this point? Also, on the subject of meaning to do more, I meant to make 3 character designs and instead spent 6 hours on this one, you know, as you do. But let's get into the design. I struggled a lot with colors and anatomies and things on this one, so I'm actually glad I took a little bit more time on this one and decided to not pressure myself to draw all of the characters that I wanted to, but that is why the file name is Ladies, and I never changed that. So this was originally going to be a group design with 3 very cool warrior women, but as previously mentioned, I only ended up drawing 1 for this video. I do plan on drawing the other 2 still, and ideally I'll be able to put them together in a cohesive group pose, even if I draw them all separately, but I am going to need everybody to keep their fingers crossed and hope that my proportions and perspective stay relatively similar despite drawing on different canvases. Also, surprise, this is a Dragonborn, which is the main reason I struggled with anatomy. I guess I'm just unsure about how and where a lizard skull would connect to a more humanoid neck. I think ideally a thicker neck is the way to go when making Dragonborn designs, but that is based entirely off of vibes. I have no advice. Also, I just happen to not give my Dragonborn a tail. There are certain Dragonborn types that distinctly do not have horns or do not have tails or what have you. The fact that I didn't give this character a tail does not reflect at all on whether or not I think Dragonborn in my campaign book should or shouldn't have tails. I'm just gonna be honest, I just straight up forgot to even think about drawing tails in general. Also, in most cases, I find that physical flavor to a character, as long as it doesn't break agreed upon mechanics or designs of the game, and as long as it isn't used to lord a character's specialness over the rest of the party, it is generally fine to add fun elements to a character's design. So, who is this lady? This is Xiyola Asorzko, which you would think that knowing I'm going to have to be saying any of these names out loud would make me pick easier to pronounce names. But if anything, making things more difficult for myself is on brand, and it would be against my nature to do otherwise. But actually, she does have a nickname. They call her Kaitherblood. Who is they? Why Kaitherblood? Who is Xiyola at all? So many questions, and they all get answered by going to a city called Scorchwood, which is the sister city to Warpwood. 2 weeks ago, I released a video talking a little bit about Warpwood and the Priestess Solril Heavyridge who runs it. Scorchwood is a city that's a little bit southwest from Warpwood, and it's run by a duchess named Valentina, though her dukedom or duchessdom is anything but traditional. It's more of a training camp in the middle of the Morinheller Basin, and the majority of those who live in Scorchwood are part of the Dukajiin, who are known to be some of the most aggressive and resilient warriors on the continent of Vasseldal. The Dukajiin have many skills, but they fall under 3 general categories, and each of the categories are led by a different, hot, strong, powerful lady, because I just have a thing for making trios of strong ladies. Using Dungeons and Dragons terminology, the 3 categories of Dukajiin are wisdom spellcasters, dexterity-based builds, and strength-based builds. And Xiyola, or as called by her subordinates, Kaitherblood, is the woman responsible for turning out warriors of incomparable strength. There is a rumor around Vasseldal that warriors who train under Kaitherblood continue to fight in a fit of rage even after life has left the body. But then again, who could have lived through an attack from a Dukajiin to have witnessed such a sight? We also talked about Kaither, the beast god, and Kaitherian religion in the previous campaign book video with Solril and Camino, which summed up, Kaitherian religion is rooted in the belief in lessons from hardships and being resourceful and practicing gratefulness. Scorchwood and the Dukajiin have perhaps an ever so slightly more rigid sense of the religion. They emphasize a present and current struggle with the intention of better bettering oneself to result in a better future for the next generation. In Xiyola's personal interpretation of the Kaitherian and Dukajiin value sets, Xiyola doesn't believe in fate. She doesn't believe in inherent good, and she doesn't believe in inherent evil. She believes in consequences to actions and the heavy burden of even the smallest of decisions, and she believes in building a bright future out of the remains the past has left. Every once in a while I read a little segment of whatever I've written for my campaign book, and I sort of sit back and smile a little about it, looking kind of like Anya from Spy Family. Because I'm allowed to be proud of myself as a treat. But that's enough lore dumping on you all. Let's talk about how much I struggled with color picking for this character. I actually went to search for some dramatic lighting color palettes to try and get a feel for what I wanted her to look like, but as I was testing my original color choices, I ended up hating it. And then I tried to go for a dustier palette, and the contrast just felt so stark. And finally, I landed in this weird zone that I wasn't sure I was going to like. It's very sunset, maybe kind of twilight, but mostly it's very bright, and y'all know how I feel about palettes that have too many bright colors. Needless to say, I was intimidated, but I decided to trust the process. And I mean, I like how the overall design came out. I like the little details. I think it's pretty balanced, but I'm still not quite sold on the color palette, though I can't really say what exactly about the colors I specifically dislike. I think it might be some color theory mind tricks and the contrast of the bright white background that makes me not love it, but I didn't want to work on a dark gray background because I knew that it would have to be formatted into my document eventually, which currently has a white background. Although I do eventually want to make it look kind of parchmenty like a lot of D&D books do, but that is another issue to solve at a future time. What I do enjoy about working bright color palettes is that it makes me less afraid to use more saturated and honestly darker, higher contrast shadows. Since most of my character designs are isolated without any background or strong indications of lighting type or source, I tend to undervalue the use of shading and bright lighting in my work. I also haven't done nearly as many art studies as I should be doing or even need to be doing over the course of my life, but for this drawing and my drawing of Miraak, I have a lot of fun with bright yellows as a highlight color and dark purples as a shadow color, and I know very colorful shading and highlighting isn't always the answer, but I do think it brings life into the design, and I hope this is a step in a good learning direction for future pieces. Okay, and now it's time for a confession. I don't actually have a super deep lore for why 3 people specifically are in charge of the Dukajiin instead of 1 for each related D&D stat. I don't actually yet have a reason for any of the 3 women to have been chosen as leaders, and I also don't have a backstory for Xiyola at all, which is a little unusual because I have a tendency to overbuild my NPCs, particularly in the backstories. All that being said, I did not create Xiyola just for fun. I mean, technically all of this is just for fun in one way or another, but Xiyola does serve a purpose. Currently in my campaign book, I'm fleshing out a chapter which has relatively short summaries of each of the cities and a list of the figureheads and important NPCs in it. So, for example, I'll talk about the city's size, population, and overall general appearance, and name and briefly describe the most important or notable people in that general area. And in doing a lot of work on the book in recent months, I found out that I have a lot of cities with cool ideas and purposes behind them, but I don't actually have a government system in place for all of them, and for as many NPCs that I do have, a lot of them are just very central to 1 or 2 cities on my map. So I decided that instead of just going off of vibes and only fully fleshing out one city at a time, I needed to start taking a more sideways approach so that my love and passions are not so obviously all centralized in one city. Cough cough Ichtharul. Xiyola and the other 2 women working under the Duchess of Scorchwood were made in this sort of way where I had a vague idea of how the leadership structure should work and then made some characters to suit it. But that is not to say that I have no idea what purposes Xiyola might hold, and by no means does that make Scorchwood or the Duchess any less important to the overall overall story. In games that I've been a part of or have listened to, I've always been a big fan when a DM gives players opportunities to learn and develop, and not just in-game character development, but on their actual character sheets without having to get to the next level. Anything from letting a character get a recipe to be able to repeatedly make a cool contraption or a minor potion, to actually giving characters feats or allowing a character to cast a cantrip that normally would be outside of their class options. Obviously, taking in some consideration for time exchange to gain such a feat, or fairness to other players and trying not to break the game. I like to think that traveling and training with the Dukajiin or one of the members over a long enough period of time could result in gaining feats relating to one of the 3 respective stats, a stat buff in general, or picking up some sort of cleric cantrip from the wisdom spellcaster, which may or may not be something that the players want to ever invest valuable in-game time to, especially since I have a feeling that characters will be traveling a lot and probably will not be very inclined to stay in one city for too long. But you know what? I just like having opportunities. Having created so many characters over the course of years and so many hours and so many unplayed games, I sometimes think I should be worried about investing so much time into something my players might never ever interact with or might not want to interact with. But honestly, in most cases, I'm not. I don't know if it's because of the childhood map making and character design and the sheer joy that I already get just from the possibility of something happening, or if it's because it's low stakes knowing that it's D&D baby and I can just recycle a missed side quest or an unused plot hook, or maybe it's just the satisfaction of putting all these characters and locations and ideas out into the world for all y'all to enjoy. But whatever the reason for the serotonin is, I'm glad, because I have enough anxiety about hundreds of other things. So to be 100% satisfied with characters just existing in my made-up world is a win that I'm going to try to not be too skeptical about. And also on that note, I will literally take any excuse to draw just a fun little character design. Genuinely, my whole channel is an excuse to make fun little character designs and also give you guys fun little character designs and ideas to use in your own drawings or campaigns or just for your eating pleasure, because art edibility means everything to me. Also, speaking of character designs and thinking a little bit in advance, Art Fight is coming up in like a month, and I definitely don't want to post all of my new characters to Art Fight because that's a lot, but I was thinking of holding some sort of tournament poll bracket across my various social medias to choose like a top 8 or so of characters. Or maybe I'll just ask y'all what your favorite characters of mine are to figure out which ones you would want me to post on there. So I don't know, comment down below, I guess. I don't know. But on that completely unrelating ending of a tangent note, I bring you Kaitherblood, Xiyola Asorzko herself, a true neutral female Dragonborn. Let me know, would you be able to maintain eye contact with this woman? I know I wouldn't, mostly because eye contact is not one of my strong suits, but I'm really looking forward to getting to the rest of the trio. Literally nothing gets my art inspiration going like drawing a trio of strong women. That and also thinking about vampires, most likely. But with that, thank you so much for watching. Headcanons, suggestions, art fight requests, very, very welcome in the comments, and hopefully I'll be able to come up with a compelling backstory for this upcoming trio. But who knows? Not me.